This is music, and this is yet another deep dive into the Danish demo dungeon. So in this video, like the last one, we're going to have a look at a band that I feel got cheated, basically. These guys were, I guess, really good, very professional sounding. We're looking at another underground thrash metal band called Rigid Domain. So let's take a look. We're back looking at the dungeon. It's an archive that archives Danish underground metal for the most part. Demo tapes, other formats as well, but mainly demo tapes from the 90s. Also a bit from the 80s and a bit from after the 90s. And you can access it right here. And with most of the things that are archived here, you can actually even listen to the songs. Now we're interested in Rigid Domain, a band that were relatively big actually on the local scene from Odense in Denmark, my birth town. So it's right here. And they were a band that were excellent musicians, great songwriters. They were cheated, in my opinion, out of the opportunity to release full-length albums on a major or mid-tier label, because they were really good. Now, they were known for having a female vocalist here, Julie Molin. On the first demo, however, they had, I think it's this guy here. Look at how 80s these dudes look. But this guy here, I think, Torben Askholm, I think was his name, who did the vocals, and that's on the first demo, and that's an interesting connection. If you like progressive metal, he would later appear as the vocalist on the first 2 or 3 Anubis Gate albums. They're kind of like a progressive metal band, really good. His singing style is kind of theatrical, but he can sing, I mean, so it's not just shouts and barks and screams and stuff like that. He can sing, but he sings in a very theatrical way. He also sang on Prophets of Doom, that one album, I think they did. So, and he's been in some other bands. I think Northern Empire, I think he sang as well. So he's done a lot of work. But he was on the first Rigid Domain demo. And then he was replaced by Julie Molin, who sang on everything else they did. And they were a quite big band on the local scene. I think they even played abroad, like in Germany and Sweden and so on and so forth. So they could have made it really big. A fun bonus note is that Klaus here, he was also in Sliced Pimples, a kind of a humor crossover band, and he produced one of the demos I did with the band I was in back in the mid to late 90s. Anyways, let's have a look at the demos. So the first one is Futile Existence from 1987, so we're in the late 80s here, and obviously that's why they look so 80s, right? Because it's with this lineup here. So we have 3 songs on it. The style, I would say, is thrash metal, maybe power thrash, maybe with a bit of speed metal influence to it. You got Say Grace, you have Where Evil Dwells, and you have Rigid Domain, kind of the title track there. And a pretty cool piece of cover artwork, which I think is maybe airbrushed or something that was quite popular in the late 80s and early 90s. So we're dealing with melodic, I would say, thrash metal, power thrash, speed metal influences. The songs are mid-paced, a lot of them, but with some up-tempo, I don't know why it sounded like a terrible techno song, but with, you know, the typical up-tempo thrash metal beats every now and then. I would not call it technical or progressive, but it certainly has technical and progressive leanings, and the songs are well written. It's you know, everything is well performed. These guys were great musicians. I mean, they could as well have been, and some of them ended up in other projects, of course, as professional musicians. So great songs, power thrash. You have Torben Askholm, as I said, I think that's his name. You have his vocals, very theatrical. I mean, he doesn't sound at all like King Diamond, but it's within that sort of vein of theatrical singing. And it might be a bit challenging to some people, but if you're a fan of the first couple of Anubis Gate albums, I think you're gonna like this demo. It's of course it's more aggressive because it's thrash metal, but I think you would like this demo for sure. And also, you know, see if you can check out Prophets of Doom. So that's Rigid Domain, Futile Existence, melodic thrash metal with theatrical vocals, well-produced songs. Well, I mean, for an 80s demo, it's actually very well produced. So it's well-produced songs, well-composed songs as well. There's a sense of complexity and refinement to them without it being overly technical or progressive. So definitely check it out. The next one is also from the 80s, Short Tales 88. Here it says no cover, but there is actually a cover, and it looks like this. I just went to Discogs. You can see what the tape looked like, and so on and so forth. But so there's a cover, and this is the first demo that features Julie Molin on vocals. And there are like 6 tracks on it. And again, the production, pretty good for an 80s demo. Musically, we're still dealing with thrash metal, leaning more towards the melodic side, and maybe some power thrash, maybe some speed metal elements. But they have upped the progressive element. I wouldn't still call it progressive or technical thrash metal, but there's more of it. And that's of course because, you know, they probably sort of developed and evolved as musicians, you know, from the year, right, 87 to 88. A lot can happen, of course, right, when you practice a lot. So you got Soul Shaker, you got Gore, Redeemer, you got While the Kids, and it has a full title. Let's just see if Discogs can help us, because I seem to remember it's called While the Kids something something. Okay, it just says While the Kids here too. Interesting. So let's just, because I'm pretty sure it has a full title. So let's just check Metal Archives. So this is a deep dive. Metal Archives, Rigid Domain. Let's see. So there you go. Rigid Domain. Short Tales. While the Kids Are Out to Play. I thought so. Here you can see the cover too. So While the Kids Are Out to Play, Rigid, Slight Return, and then you got The Rise and Fall of Friedrich Rimfries, I guess, Wig. And the last one is an instrumental, and it's a bit of a quirky instrumental. It has certainly progressive leanings. I would call this one a progressive thrash, power thrash song. It has progressive leanings for sure. There's even like, although there's no wankery like that going on, but it does have a bit of Joe Satriani feel to it. Maybe just because it's instrumental, I don't know. But overall, we're dealing with, again, melodic, refined, slightly complex thrash metal. I would say, although I said it's melodic, I would say the songs in this demo are a tad more aggressive as well. You have more up-tempo stuff on this demo. So this is the first demo that features Julie Molin on vocals. Her singing style is very different from that of Torben Askholm. Her style is also quite different from what you would expect from female vocalists of metal bands today. Her style, I think, reminds me a lot of Leather from Chastain, so more kind of like hard-edged and aggressive singing style. You can certainly hear that she sort of has to find her bearings here, get her bearings on this release. It's not bad or anything, but it does sound like she has to, she still has to sort of become a bit comfortable, if you know what I mean. Maybe singing in the studio or something like that. But 6 very good thrash metal songs, very professional sounding. Again, based on this demo, I would sign them if I were a record label executive or just representative. The last demo they have here, but that's not their last demo, that's Death is Just Another Whore, Bitchin' With My Life. It's from 1990. Pretty cool cover artwork here. Very underground. This looks like something you might find on one of the sort of caveman death metal cassette tapes from today, I think. You got 3 tracks on it, and same style, slightly progressively leaning, slightly technical, thrash metal, with maybe some power thrash thrown in, maybe some speed metal thrown in. You got some mid-tempo parts, and this actually goes for all of these demos here, that you have some pretty cool riffage, I would say. You got some mid-tempo parts, you got some up-tempo parts. So the songs are Time of Possession, White Alley, and Dark Moments. And one thing they sort of have added here is perhaps the maybe crossover element of sort of gang style vocals. Certainly in Time of Possession, you have a lot of, the dudes in the band shouting angry stuff in the background, with kind of a thick Danish accent. So I don't know, I guess that makes it a bit charming. I don't know. As a speaker of a foreign language, hearing your own accent or the accent of your own language is always, I think, more jarring to you than it is to people that are not speakers of your language. You know what I mean? So if English with a Danish accent, such as my own English, sounds maybe a bit more jarring to me than it would do to you if you're not a Danish learner of English. Anyways, so you got these 3 songs, and they're very good in my opinion. I do feel that this is even more aggressive than the previous demo. And here, Julie Molin, now she's become comfortable in her role as singing in the studio. I think they've been out and they've played a lot of gigs as well. So she sounds awesome, really, really angry, really like snarling, I guess, at you as a listener. Really, really with a hard edge. Great stuff. Only 3 tracks on this demo, but again, I would sign them on the basis of this demo too. Now, that was not the last demo. There is another demo, and I'm just going to show it here. Mandatory End of Story. So I think they knew that the end was near. So you have these 6 tracks on it. You have this cover artwork, and the reason why I'm just highlighting this or mentioning it is that this was the only demo tape I had in my collection by Rigid Domain, and it's still thrash metal, but as far as I remember, maybe they slowed down a tiny bit. Julie Molin sounds even better in this demo, and there are some songs, at least, on YouTube, as far as I remember. Maybe the entire demo is floating about somewhere on YouTube or somewhere else online. But I do know that Roll Back Time here is, or maybe it's been taken down, but I've heard that somewhere online. But that's Mandatory End of Story, another great demo. So Rigid Domain, in my opinion, yeah, I think they got cheated out of career. Whether you go with this lineup, the 80s looking dudes, or this lineup, the 90s looking band, they were great. That was Rigid Domain, yet another really good underground thrash metal band from my birth town, no less, that were actually cheated in my opinion. They should have been signed, they should have been given the chance to actually release some albums, because you know they were great musicians and they were also sort of groundbreaking. They were one of the few thrash metal bands at the time with a female vocalist. But you know, I encourage you to give the files in the demo dungeon a listen, and if you can find a digital copy of Mandatory End of Story floating about somewhere in cyberspace, give that a listen too. Thanks for watching.